Oh, I signed on the wrong line. Great.
Oh, okay.
I'm down here.
I didn't notice.
No, I should fix it. Sorry, I already signed mine.
Know who I am? I'm Sylvia Alexander. I'm the chair of the Education, Libraries, and Cultural Affairs Committee. And, we are still grappling with the, quorum, but, we're getting there. Not even 10 minutes. Hi. Okay, so I'm ready to go then. The member of the committee that is on Zoom due to extraordinary circumstances is Judith Green. We're happy to have you, Judy. Of her.
Ask her to
Muted or whatever, yeah.
to unmute.
Approval of the minutes of October 24th, those are the ones from last meeting. They dealt with the resolution that we passed to approve the Van Cortlandt Motel as a primary school. I call for any questions on the minutes? Can I call for a vote? Anyone against the minutes? One abstaining? passed. Saying something? So they pass unanimously. Thank you. Next thing, the chairperson's report, I'm going to leave that until a little bit later. I'd like to get into the discussion for the negative, for the law suit that was brought against the SCA and the council by Christina Carlson, who was joined by others in her building. And I'd like to call on Purnell. Be connected. How do we unmute her?
Just asked her to unmute.
Would you please unmute? She to hear that?
Okay. Right now, Christina.
Yes.
Go.
When you're muted, it's very hard to tell somebody that you have to unmute them. They have to unmute
I was
you.
wondering how that worked.
So well done.
Good luck if
The
you can do it,
pantomime
right?
worked.
Okay, I'm calling on you. I invited you here because I was very interested in, I hadn't seen the legislation. I do now have it. I see what happened, and being that we are now before another situation with the Van Cortlandt Motel, which is also proposed for a school, I think that I personally would like to learn a little bit more about how you guys went about it, and so successfully, because you won your case. And I have some questions, but I'd like you to just give us a little synopsis of it, and then we'll get into more of a discussion.
Yeah, of course. I'm happy to do it. So, as you know, the first time the community really became aware of the scope of the project at 160 Van Cortlandt Park South was at the September, what is this? We're in 2023, so the September 2022 land use meeting. And I think we were all just flabbergasted at the size of what was being proposed. And at that point, not even proposed. It seemed like it was a done deal. And, you know, we were flabbergasted at the size and the scope of it. And we were flabbergasted that something of that size could be so far along in the works, in the proposal stage, in the development stage, without the community having had any real input. And so, you know, there was kind of panic in this little corner of Kingsbridge here, because those of us who live here understood better than I'm sure the SCA or Tishman Speyer or, you know, anybody else involved with this decision making, just the kind of impact that was going to have. This is a very congested corner. If you've, you know, ever been through here during rush hour on a, you know, in the morning or in the evening, you know this. Traffic and parking are at a premium, and we just could not figure out how we were going to absorb that. So, you know, we started to investigate that, and then unfortunately, what we found, we were looking like, well, what can we do? What can we do? And there weren't a lot of options. There were no options with Tishman Speyer because, of course, they have their property as of right. But there was an option with the School Construction Authority, which is in Article 78, which, you know, is a kind of lawsuit that can be brought against a government agency. So that was an option with SCA, not with Tishman Speyer. And I think, you know, we kind of thought, all right, this is probably our best bet, since the school construction authority is probably not going to listen to us on their own. And then we found out, unfortunately, two bits of news that were very discouraging. One was that we were working with a very restricted time frame. You guys probably know better than I do, or than I did anyway. The kind of time frame of this, right? The school construction authority presented their proposal to the city council in June, and the negative declaration was ratified at the July city council meeting, and we had 3 months. There's a 3-month statute of limitations in terms of filing an Article 78, which gave us till November 14th. So you can imagine learning about this project at the end of September. I think that meeting was either September 21st or September 28th, and only having until November 14th. So that was very panic inducing. And, several members of my building, members of our board, looked into hiring an attorney, which again was a very last minute kind of thing. And as I'm sure you can appreciate, attorneys for this kind of work are not cheap. They ask for $25,000 right up front, and they lay out their billing, and it can get up to $1 million. And we're a fairly modest building. We don't have that kind of money, and so we kind of thought that was the end of the line. And then I remembered reading about a woman, a kind of just a regular person in Brooklyn who had filed this kind of lawsuit. It had to do with she lived near the Brooklyn Botanic Gardens, and it was a zoning issue, and she was successful. Her name was Alicia Boyd, and she was successful. So I reached out to her and I said, you don't know me. This is my situation. What can I do? And she was very helpful in terms of giving me templates, of kind of legal forms, told me the kinds of things, I needed to pay attention to. And I thought, well, I don't have a lot of time, but I also don't have a lot of options, and someone needs to do something about this. So I volunteered to kind of take point on it. I'm an English professor, so I was like, I can write things and research them. It's kind of what I do. It's not my normal subject area, but we'll make do. And I think the thing is really, probably the two things I would say are, one, those of us in the community knew that the project was too big, right? We just knew that the scope of it was too big. But you can't just go to a court and say it's too big, right? You have to find legal grounds for challenging it. And that's where it gets tricky, because, those are very specific things. So what we really had to do was find a problem with the EAF, with the environmental assessment form, which, by the way, it was a self-declared EAF. The school construction authority basically rubber stamped themselves, right? The EAF is you might think of it as a short form, as opposed to a full environmental impact statement, which is a much more comprehensive study. And so school construction authority basically did an EAF as opposed to an EIS, and then they rubber stamped themselves. And that is what they sent to the city council. And I think the city council kind of rubber stamped it, because who doesn't want new schools? Everyone wants new schools. And in principle, a new school seems like a great idea. But unfortunately, the EAF just simply did not adequately take into account the impact on this particular neighborhood of a school that size. And so it really came down to poring over the EAF to look for places that we could challenge them legally. So for instance, I mean, the kind of minutia that we had to look at, right, was like they did a study of traffic, right? Well, one of the days they did that study of traffic was a school holiday. So there were no school buses in the area. It's like, what kind of evaluation is that? That you're talking about a school and you did this evaluation on a day there were no school buses? That doesn't make sense. There were certain street corners in this area, like the one-way streets at Review and Putnam, that they did not consider those intersections when they were looking at it. Like, that's not comprehensive. And so these were the kinds of things that we were sort of throwing at them, right? And so it was that, and also just kind of the process that they went through, the idea that they did not fully take into account the fact that that property was on the was eligible to be on the register of national and state historic landmarks, which they should have taken into account, or they noted it but didn't factor it into the way they were classifying the property. So we just kind of, or I should say, I did most of the writing. I had folks sort of reading it over, looking for things, but I was the one who ended up writing it up. And as I said, that was something I willingly took on. And just trying to find things that would stick. So it was really about finding the evidence in the documents that SCA themselves had produced to prove the point that they hadn't done their due diligence in fully assessing the environmental impact. And the court agreed with us. So, I was really, that felt very validating. So that just gives you a sense of what we went through. And it took a year, right? Like, we just found out the results this fall, not that long before I came before you guys with the information. So it was an intense process. And of course, they are planning to appeal it. I think we'll do okay on appeal, but they have the resources to throw at it. So it's a long process.
So actually, being that they're appealing, if we were, we aren't into the EAS yet either on the motel that's down the road somewhere. We wouldn't really have a leg to stand on until the appeal is completed.
No, I wouldn't say that. I would say two things to that. The first thing I would say is, I would ask them for the environmental impact statement right up front. I mean,
Right.
Go to them and say, look, right, there was a Bronx Supreme Court ruling that said that's what they should have done here, and telling them that's what they have to do here. So, appeal or no appeal, the fact is that a Supreme Court judge found that to be the case. And so I think, they're on notice now, right? And I think, the fact that you're talking about another school across the street from a park, right, that has all of these different considerations in terms of traffic and environmental things, they should just be doing that. And I think you should make that case to them and say, save everyone the trouble and just do the EIS so that you have an accurate, complete, responsible sense of what the impact is.
Right. Well, the SCA at the first time around said that they don't have to include us in the EAS. That is not done by SCA, and that was the part that was very difficult. And then they came out with the negative declaration, which, blew our minds, because there was so much in there that shouldn't have been in there and not looked at and, that sort of thing, so that we, until you came along and you did your wonderful thing, you know, I personally didn't know where to go. And I thank you for doing that. I know that you benefited of it too, but we did also, and I appreciate that.
Well,
Uh,
I do see it as a benefit to the community. And like I said, you know, I was benefited in doing mine by somebody else who had been through that experience and was willing to share her experience of
Right.
going up against the city, you know, as the little guy, as a pro se litigant, right? As a non-lawyer, as a non-professional. And so, you know, I do think it's important that, um, you know, those of us who have to fight these battles because no one else is doing it, you know, help each other. And so I do hope that this is that our experience is useful here. And I you know say like I hope that Community Board 8 will support us as we continue to do that, but I see it as a mutual thing. And if there's any way that, you know, those of us who brought this case can support Community Board 8 and support particularly your committee with this, then, you know, we're happy to do that because this is our neighborhood. You know, we live, our building is right off Broadway. It's not that far away, right? The flow of traffic, all of that, you know, it impacts us. It is our community. And I think one of the things we argued, right, is that the park makes it a unique location, right? Um this is not a kind of dense urban environment in the way, you know, that a lot, you know, like the kind of area that a lot of schools are being built in and need to be built in, right? You have the luxury of space in a way. You have the natural environment to consider. And I think SCA has a responsibility to do that, right? You know,
Right.
for the communities, for the kids, you know, and they should be, that should be demanded of them. So the city council has ratified the negative declaration?
I don't know. I would have to get in touch with the councilman
Well,
to
that,
find that out.
because I will say, that is something, because the city council can stop it. The city council can go and tell them they have to go back to the drawing board. So our problem was the city council had already signed off on it. And from what I understand, our representative was not even at that meeting. So I
Really?
kind of feel like SCA pulled a fast one because even the size of the building, the number of desks had increased by the time it got to the city council. And, you know, our representative may not even have been aware of that. Um, so, you know, again, everyone's like, oh, school, great. No, not great. So that would be the first thing to find out. If this has not been approved by the city council, then definitely, you know, get the ear of the city council and tell them, you know, show them this case, tell them to go back to the SCA and say, you tried this
Right.
once, you ended up having to go to court, don't do it again. Like, just
Right.
recognize when you're building near a park, you should do the full environmental impact statement. Just do it.
Yes. Um, is there, a due date that they have to do this by from the court? The EIS?
No, there was not. So, and again, that, you know, who knows how long this will go on because it is a lengthier process. So you know, I'm sure they will drag their feet until they're absolutely forced to do it. And then once that happens, it's, you know, it's a more involved process than the EAF, which is what they did initially. So, yeah, so the whole thing is on hold until that
Oh,
happens.
right.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of good news because
Yes.
maybe something will happen.
Yes.
I want to open up the conversation. Does anyone have any questions around the table? You're new, so you weren't through all of this, or you're aware of it.
Yeah. Question, what about the apartment building, the residential building?
That's as of right, so that has nothing to do with the school.
So that construction will go ahead?
That I don't
Although
know.
I will say, I mean, I have not heard anything from Tishman Speyer recently, but it is my feeling that now that we have this decision, they should pay attention to it, because I believe they were using the same basic information. And now the court is saying, no, this needs to be reconsidered. They're not obligated to reconsider it, but I think it would be very wise for them, or responsible, I'll say, for them to consider it. And I also think, this is something that that I think is very important, and maybe it's something that not necessarily this subcommittee, but CB8 as a whole can support us in, is saying, and telling our elected officials, no public funds to Tishman Speyer until they take this under advisement. If they claim that they are committed to the community, and a Supreme Court judge that represents our community has said this, then they have a responsibility to look at it. And I think if they did that, they would probably have to modify their design, which is what we've been asking all along. Again, we do not object to a school.
It is a very large school, yeah.
We do not object to a building. We object to the scope and the scale.
Right.
So that's what I was trying to understand, because I'm new to this. I mean, I've been here for the school they're talking about at the Van Cortlandt Motel. That the objection is the size, the impact, the environmental impact because of the size.
Correct.
Of the school. How, just again, because I'm new to this school, how many seats were they talking about? Just because just a reference point of like how many we're talking about for the school.
Roughly about 854.
So it's almost.
Let me say this, that there is a playground on the roof.
Right.
And there is a very small early childhood, 25 feet, 2,500 feet of a space in the parking lot, next to the parking lot for the little ones.
Well,
Yeah.
Sorry, we're not talking about Van Cortlandt Motel. We're talking about.
Well, everything
that is what he's talking about.
I'm piggybacking on, I don't know what the problems will be at the motel, because we haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah, and just to clarify, this building, the school at 160 Van Cortlandt, originally they had written, I think, 654. The version that got sent to the city council was 714 desks. And that's just children with, something like 125 faculty and staff. It's just enormous. Yes. And they are, I mean, what are the environmental impacts of that? Like, think about school buses, think about support staff, think about faculty, think about lines of cars, parents. I mean, it's a nightmare scenario, particularly given what the traffic is like between the entrance to the Major Deegan and the intersection at Broadway on any given weekday. It's just absurd. So that was a problem. But we were also concerned about things like trash, like sewage. This is a building that sits on top of the Tibbetts Brook. This neighborhood floods. You all saw what happened on the Deegan during that big storm a couple of years ago. That was an issue. So, there were all these things. And to that point, yes, given where it is and the kind of property they have, the idea that the best they could do as a play space for children is a rooftop cage just strikes me as absurd. And yes, the lot for the kindergarten students is essentially a basketball sized asphalt lot that is literally in the parking lot, like surrounded by the parking lot of the Tishman building, because there was some very weird back and forth between them and the way they divided the lot. That, I mean, like, I can't even imagine anybody thinking that that was a good idea for kids. I don't know. I still find it shocking talking about it now.
Emily, you have another?
Oh, yeah, sorry, I had another question, because you mentioned the number of seats there. My understanding from when we're talking about the school at the Van Cortlandt Motel is that in this district, we were short 546 seats for public school students. So it's interesting, if they went ahead and built a school the size that you're talking about, and then they went and built a school the size we're also talking about, then there's no need. No, I should stop talking. I just feel like there's
No, but they're right. There's no need for
right?
either school to be that big.
The thing is that the SCA is doing both projects.
Okay.
And they have
Future
regulations.
predictions,
Yeah.
okay.
They have regulations, and if you look at their, website, they spell it out. When they have to get involved, with the community and such, you know, it's very, very limited. And, that is why at the visitation site, that which, Christina is talking about actually came to be, because we were not allowed to, have any say in anything. It was just steamrolled over us as far as Community Board 8 was concerned. And I have to say that I've been chair of the committee for 15 years. I've been in Riverdale over 50, and we haven't had a new school. So when this presented itself, we were totally new, to the whole process. And that's where it went wrong.
Yes, and to your point, it's a very good observation. When you haven't had a new school in that long, I think you want new schools. I mean, it is a desirable thing in a neighborhood in principle. But my understanding, because of course the community was not alerted to any of this, which is part of the problem, and I think there were some violations of open meeting law with SCA as well. And Sylvia, kind of what you're saying sort of suggests that. My understanding is that Community Board 8 approved the site, but never approved a plan. And those are two very different things. You can say that a site is an appropriate site, and there was a school there. I mean, visitation had a school. So I think it does make sense. But it's one thing to say this would be a good place for a school, and another thing to say we're going to put 750 desks.
And you're right about that, and we are bound by SCA that they come and they present their site plan, which is really a tax map. No design or anything like that. They give you some ballpark figure as to how many children will be in a certain location, and at that point, what do you say? That you don't want the school? You can't say that, because our schools are overcrowded. They have been in the past. And you want to be able to give the community the schools they need. So, we don't have any choice really at that point. The only time that we can have a choice is further down the road. But that first, approval of the site plan before it goes to the council is really totally, not made clear for us. We're really, totally in the dark as to what actually will happen down the road. So the process doesn't really allow the community to get involved, and somebody should, at the state level, change the process. And it would be a lot fairer for everyone.
This is where I would
don't know
say,
if that'll ever happen.
I agree with you. And this is where I would say, make sure that your city council representatives are representing your interests when they go to vote on it.
Right.
Because
Well,
when that happens, they have the specifics.
Right. Well, I'm surprised that he wasn't even there, and I
Yes.
will call him up and speak to him. Any other questions? Anyone
too
on
can.
Zoom that, there's
We have
some-
Belinda Hancock and we have Rosemary Ginsey. So
Right.
Rosemary, I think, goes first because she's on the board,
Okay,
right?
Rosemary?
Okay, I'm gonna ask to, know the rules. It's a multitask, but in theory, go ahead, Rosemary.
Is that good? Is that okay? Oh, my goodness. I go,
Yes,
thank
we
you.
can.
This was, first of all, I have to say, when I heard at the last community board meeting that the court decided in the favor of the plaintiff here and said that the negative declaration produced by SCA was arbitrary and capricious, and that they had to do an EIS. It was astounding to me. I mean, I cannot tell you how astounding it is. This is a case of David versus Goliath. I hope everybody understands what, I mean, Christina, I don't know how you did this. I really don't, except maybe the merits were on your side and that's what won with the judge. But she was faced with, and I'm going to say it, the largest law firm in the United States of America, except for the Department of Justice. She was faced with corporation counsel and the lawyers at SCA, and she won.
I didn't know that.
This is astonishing. It is astonishing. The merits were on your side. Thank God we have a legal system that looks at what I don't even know what your papers were, but they looked at them and said what SCA did was arbitrary and capricious. Throw it out. I do remember that negative declaration was actually shockingly ignorant of the entire neighborhood. That what they called for in the negative declaration, and please, everybody should understand this, and we should have participated far more in the environmental assessment to get to the point where they came to this conclusion. This is what they said: change the timing minutely on a traffic light on 228th Street and Broadway. That's what they said was important to deal with the environmental consequences of this size of school at that location. Not one word about all the traffic going to the Major Deegan and from the Major Deegan on Van Cortlandt Park south there, or anybody who even goes there understands where the traffic issues are. It is not the timing of a traffic light on 238th and Broadway. So that negative declaration was shocking. It should have been thrown out. It was arbitrary and capricious, and they need to go back and look at it again. Now, okay, now I'm going to say, because that's what I'm focused on. How can all of us, the community board, move forward with assisting in a new look at the environmental issues surrounding this site? That, to me, is the basis of what we should be doing. It wasn't done before. It should be done now. The court has thrown this negative declaration out. Let's look at it anew. Traffic issues are significant. There are other issues that are significant. The relationship to the park. I'm not going to go into detail, but clearly there are issues that need to be reviewed. Madam Chair, I'm sorry, I will not go on. I just had to say that this court decision is astonishing. It is, it's amazing to me that, David won against Goliath, really did. And we are all winners of that decision and should take it and do something good with it. Do something different, do what we should have done before. Look at really the issues that face this community, big or small, but they deserve to be reviewed. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to stop. Thank you for giving me the time. Thank you.
Thank you,
Hey,
Rosemary.
Rosemary. Belinda, you have a question?
Yes,
Try
hi,
to
I'm
unmute.
sorry. I missed the beginning of the meeting. I had to take a call. But, Ms. Carlson, what is your title or what is your exact duty here?
I am a private citizen. I am just a member of the community. I live at 180 Van Cortlandt Park South, so right next to the proposed site at 160. And like
Oh, okay. So
like
are you in opposition of the school being built there or just the size itself?
yes, as I said, earlier, the first news that I and my neighbors had about this was at the land use meeting in last September 2022. And we were just shocked. We were shocked at the size of
Okay, well, that set aside though, have you thought of any other alternative if a school wasn't there, what the possibility could be placed there should the school get vetoed, whether it's resized to an appropriate smaller size? And I don't have school age children, but I'm going to speak from experience that I've known and seen many schools with rooftop playgrounds, no problems, no issues. I myself would rather have a school there within, the size that's appropriate, not overstepping, sewage and so on and so forth. I would prefer that in consideration of a very negative alternative being another shelter or another migrant place. I mean, we do need schools, most definitely. And I myself would much prefer a school there than the other negative alternative for this community.
No, I don't disagree with you at all. And of course, I've lived here in this building for 14 years. So Visitation was my parish before it closed. So I remember when the church closed, and then we knew the school would not be far behind. And I, remember when the school closed. And of course, from the moment it happened, everybody was speculating, what could it be? And you're 100% correct that there are a lot of possibilities that we were hoping it would not be. We'd heard Manhattan College might be looking at it. We thought, well, that would be great. The idea that it would be a school, I think, was always kind of out there. And I've heard many people on this committee say it's a shame that the whole site wasn't a school. That the archdiocese worked out this deal where Tishman Speyer and the SCA kind of share it. That to me is part of the problem, because having two buildings of that size creates an enormous amount of density. The Tishman Speyer building is, and that has come up at Community Board 8 meetings, is 336 units, the majority of which are studio and one bedroom. So there's a mixed message here in terms of you're building the school, you want to attract families, and yet you're not creating housing units that really reflect that. And of course, I think those of us in the community, we do have a fear. We have been the victims of bait and switch. That's what happened with the unit, the building on Broadway across from Stop and Shop. It was supposed to be market rate housing, and it ended up being you know, a transitional housing. So this has happened to Kingsbridge more than once. So I completely agree with you. I think a school is an ideal thing for that property. But I also think the school construction authority, you know, really needs to be responsible. 714 desks is too big. It's simply too big. When you think about what that means in terms of buses, in terms of car traffic, in terms of support staff and where they're going to go. And by the way, the Tishman building for 336 units has 70 parking spaces. So this is again why it's not the type of building, it's the size of the building. But you're right. There's always the possibility that the school construction authority would say, we're walking away from this site because it's too much hassle. I hope they don't do that. I would like to see a school there, and if they need as many seats as they say they need, then they would be irresponsible to do that. But they really have to consider the community that they're in. And I hope that they will do that, because I think your point is very well taken. A school is a desirable thing to have. It just has to be the right size.
I just want to mention to Belinda that when SCA came to this committee recently, we asked for a smaller school and they will not consider it at all. They are determined that they're going to have this large building, which I think that not only the community but everyone is afraid of in terms of the children that are going to be in there. There are District 75 children in there that are handicapped. There are early childhood. There's middle school. It goes up to 5th grade. There is such an abundance of children of different levels that it would make sense to have a smaller school. A school, yes, but a smaller school, but they will not consider it whatsoever. Are there any more questions? Okay, well, we'll move right along. Christina, I can't tell you how much I appreciate your coming this evening and your presentation, and if I get into any problem that is my responsibility, I'm calling you.
I hope
you're a fountain of information.
I really hope you do. It has been a privilege to be here with you tonight and to share my experience. And I really hope that I speak for, you know, myself, but I hope for, you know, my neighbors and my community members that we can really work with Community Board 8 to make sure that our kids are getting the schools that they need, the right schools. And so in any way, if there's anything I can do to help in any way that I can be of assistance to you, please don't hesitate to be in touch with me.
Thank you very much. The next thing on the agenda is I wanted to mention sometimes the Kingsbridge Historical Society that bought the Edge Hill Church gets in touch with me, and most of the time it's on a time where I can't. They have community programs, and I wanted to ask the committee if anyone is interested in that sort of thing, so that when there is an invitation and I can't make it, that, you know, do you want me to send it around to all the members?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. It's a shame to let it go to waste. As far as the future topics for meetings upcoming, does anyone have any ideas as to what you might like to have addressed?
One thing we don't get from in this meeting is we do not get any update from the schools. We don't get updates from libraries. Nobody represents schools. Nobody gives us any update what is going on in PS24, RKA, or PS81.
yes, in the past, I've had the, principals of 81 and 24. I can do that again.
If we can request.
You
now.
weren't here at that time, but now you are, and I'd be happy to do that for you.
Yeah, we never get anything for the past couple of years. I never,
Okay.
an opportunity
Okay.
to hear from the school.
Are you interested in 24 or 81 or both?
I mean, any schools in the community board, yeah.
Okay.
If someone can come in and give us
Okay,
an idea what's
no
going
problem.
on, yeah. Do get from libraries, and we're thankful for that.
Yes, yes.
I would love to visit. Have we ever, like, as a committee, visited a school?
We
I
have done
just-
that in the past also. but
I
that-
just think of, I work in the field of education and I've been in public schools in the Bronx, but I've actually never been in PS 81 or PS 24.
Uh-huh. It is a little hard because, you have to,
Mhm.
I mean, we meet at night.
Mhm.
When we did it, we met earlier so
Mhm.
that the school was open
Yeah.
because the custodians don't like opening the schools unless we
Mhm.
pay. So that is a problem.
Right. I just wonder if
So,
there's, I'd be happy to go during the, I don't know.
Yeah.
Thank you, sorry. Yeah.
I
It's
think
my
we're
fault.
ready.
It's my fault. I've never been in.
Yeah, yeah. No, that can be done.
In the past, we've, yeah, years ago.
Yeah.
We used to take,
Yeah.
little field visits.
Yeah.
You do in the school system.
So right now I just took a new job. I work for SAR.
Okay.
But before that, I ran actually the pre-K program and the 3K program at the Riverdale Y.
Else? Anyone's interested in?
Do we want to return back to that humongous document you have there?
Yeah.
About the declaration? It's gonna take a long time to process, but I'm just thinking about Rosemary's comments about learning from this going forward, if that's something we want to revisit
Right.
at the next meeting.
Right, as far as, I've spoken to Rosemary, and, she has suggested letters to the, PA on both, schools, asking us when, the EIS is going to be done, our involvement and that sort of thing. So by next meeting, I will have the letters, and you guys can okay them, and we'll send them out, and they're gonna say, too bad, but we'll do it anyway.
Mhm.
And, if you have any other suggestions, you know,
Sounds good.
Julian is talking about this folder here that, I just received the, legislation that Christina was talking about.
Mhm.
But I got it, half an hour before the meeting, and certainly I did not know that it was going to be this large. And, so I have to digest that. I don't think there's gonna be that much different than what Christina said, because she lived through it. But, I will try to go through it. I don't promise to read every word, but.
No, I know.
But, and Rosemary's good at that, so maybe she'll help me. The next thing is, I just want to assure you that, this is not going to go away. I mean, it'll be on my, agenda each month as it goes along. It's, you know, if I have something to report. I'm not dropping it. Libraries. The libraries, we have Rebecca Brown from the Riverdale branch, the manager. Rebecca, are you
Hi.
still with us?
Okay.
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I got your emails and your calendars. So,
Excellent.
if anyone around the table wants a calendar, I can make some copies. I have
Okay.
them with me. But you go ahead and talk about your wonderful branch.
Okay, but first I'd like to announce some bad news. As of November 16th, like most city agencies, NYPL received a 5% budget cut. So as a result, Sunday service has ended not only for NYPL, but all 3 library systems in New York City. So I can't get the cat. Sorry, I apologize. Competing priorities at home. So all 3 library systems have ended Sunday service. In the Bronx, the 3 branches that did have library Sunday service no longer have them. That includes Grand Concourse, Bronx Library Center, and the third one was Grand Concourse, Bronx Library Center, and there was one more. But so children and adults who need to access the libraries on Sunday don't have that option. Also, due to the 5% cut, there will be a delay in renovations, not only reopening branches that were closed, namely in the Bronx and Melrose branch, and a few others, but also a delay in maintaining our branches. So projects like fixing roofs and HVAC systems might be delayed. And it might get worse if the future budget cuts are, the mayor has said that we might get more budget cuts. So I'll keep you informed when we have more of a formal statement, but it is online. And if there, we may be reaching out to you for support when we start a new advocacy campaign, which might be earlier this year. But good news, after all the bad news, I shared my calendar. We have lots of, like all libraries, Riverdale has lots of wonderful programs, including programs for adults, children, and young adults. We have art programs for adults and a writer's workshops. So please look at our calendar, look online. And next week, we will be doing a pajama party at Wave Hill. It's free to the public. So I would love to, if you know anyone who has children, story time age, please bring them to Wave Hill. It's free admission, and we're giving out little gift bags, and it should be a really fun time. So wear your pajamas. And also, we have a new branch manager at the Van Cortlandt Branch Library, Christopher Smith.
Really? Peter is no longer there?
Peter is no longer with us. He left during the summer. We were all very sad to see him go, but he's in Florida now. But he has been replaced with Christopher Smith. Christopher, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Christopher Smith. As Rebecca stated, I am new. I basically only have a month in. So this is my first community board meeting, and I just want to take everything in and hope that I can reach out, and feel free to all contact me as well.
Okay.
So, I got some emails from you also. It looks like you're well on your way to being very, very busy. There's a lot going on there. Peter had started so many programs, and some of them I do recognize, so you're keeping them, which is great.
Yes.
They were successful, so thank you for that.
You're welcome. Thank you so much.
And I think we also have
lots of luck.
Thank you.
We also have Spite and Dival here. I don't know if they want to.
Yes, I saw Ava's name earlier.
Hi,
Ava,
everyone.
do you have, hi.
Hi. Thanks, Rebecca, for the updates. Yes, and I'm being joined by Melissa Kosher. She's our children's librarian at the Spite and Dival branch. Melissa, you want to say hello?
I just asked you to unmute.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Melissa. I'm the new-ish
Hi.
children's librarian at the Spuyten Duyvil branch. I'm excited to continue doing our family storytime programs as well as our brand new baby lap sit program. So if you have any babies in your life, feel free to let them know that they're welcome to come on Wednesdays. And excited to continue doing great children's programming at Spuyten Duyvil.
Yeah, and I just wanted
Sure
to
you
say
will.
that even though with cuts and we losing a guest children's librarian who's been very helpful with additional programs, because of the cuts, she's being moved to a different branch. Melissa will be by herself doing all the children's programming. Spuyten Duyvil is extremely busy. We've seen increase in participation and attendance. So hopefully she'll be able to manage. She's children's librarian extraordinaire, excellent, dealing with 80 people plus for each story time. So we appreciate her hard work. But yes, even though the cuts are happening, Spuyten Duyvil branch sees a lot of participants and high traffic. So we're very grateful for community support, and that keeps us busy.
Thank you.
Sylvia, may I ask a question?
Sure.
So this is for Aga and Melissa. I spend a lot of time at Spuyten Duyvil. My youngest in particular spends quite a bit of time there, and it's very, very busy. I'm very saddened to hear about the cuts. I know that last year there was a petition going around with some of the parents to see if the facilities could be worked on at Spuyten Duyvil, because there's hardly enough space to accommodate all of the babies to 4-year-olds that come in during the day. So I'm just curious to know if anything has happened since then, because I mean, I certainly want to hear more, and I certainly want to support you in whatever way I can. Aga, you are muted. Let me see if I unmute you again. Try now.
Great. Yes, thank you. Yes, so we were told probably about a year ago that there was no initiative to update our physical location. So I haven't heard of any improvements to the space at Spuyten Duyvil. So that's what we were informed from our government relations office. And maybe board, community board members know a little bit more, but we haven't been updated about any updates in the future.
Thank you.
The mayor spoke about the cut to police, fire, and sanitation. Then the next day, he took it back. So he's not doing that. However, education is also slated for large cuts. We don't know where anything is going anymore because, we get information one day, and then the next day they change the information, and you don't know which way you're going. So I'm really sorry that the libraries have been cut. We did pretty well on the budget. They had proposed even larger cuts. I guess that we're, with the city the way it is, and with the migrants and the expenses that are being incurred on the city, I think that probably, unless the government, the state or the federal government does something, we're going to have many cuts. Money has to come from somewhere. Sad. It really is sad. So I think that pretty much covers the agenda. And does anyone have any old business or new business? Are there any more questions from Zoom? Anyone have any questions? Anyone have any questions around the table? And I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Unopposed? Any abstentions? We are adjourned. Thank you so much for, everyone, for coming, and, we'll see you next month. Oh, I wanted to ask you, next month it's going to be the 26th, the day after Christmas. Is that good for everyone, or shall we skip a month?
I'm in town this year,
Yeah.
so it should be fine.
Also? Everyone else? That's okay. Okay, then it'll be 12/26. Thank you. Take care.